Let me pull up my notes. All right. Welcome to video 2 in my 30 to 30 series. We are kicking it off with something that I know is going to be controversial. We are going to be talking about being a woman of color, specifically being a Black woman. I want to start off by saying that in certain parts of the world, I would not be considered Black. I would be considered colored. It's like in Africa. In Africa, when you're Black, that means you have darker skin. When you're colored, you look a little bit more like me, like you got a little bit of milk mixed in your coffee. And you know what? The fro tells me that I'm more coffee than milk. So with that being said, in America, I'm still Black to most people. Although some people do pick up on the fact that I am not just Black, I am other things as well. I'm not going to go into my genealogy other than I am related to a few pharaohs. Do with that what you will. I want to talk today about being the first/only person of color, specifically the only or first Black woman or Black person in a space. And this can be in sports teams, this can be at work, this can be at church, this can be literally anywhere, right? I find that this happens to me all the time, and it's happened my whole life. I've always been like the only Black person in a lot of my spaces. Some of that just happens to be because of my interests. You know, now it's like there's more of us and we're able to find each other because of social media. But, you know, 10 years ago, it was hard to find another person of color who liked anime or was like into Pokemon or like whatever, right? One of the beautiful things about social media is that I can find other people that are more like me and that understand the nuances of my situations and my experiences, but that's not always the case in real life. In real life, it's often exhausting, and I constantly find myself either having to put up with blatant racism, covert racism, microaggressions, comments about my hair, people and their thinly veiled jealousy, all kinds of things. And I either have to put up with it or I say something. I'm at a place now in my life at almost 30 where I will say something. I have to call out racist or specifically the crossover episode of misogyny and racism that is misogynoir. We love that. No, we don't. I deal with that quite a bit. I always have. I didn't know that that was a word until maybe a year or two ago, but it's definitely the crossover that nobody asked for, but I deal with, and other Black women specifically deal with all the time. One of the things that I think is really tough is being the only Black person or Black woman, or even just the only non-white person in a space, often lends itself to looking around and being like, oh, these people have very different life experiences than I do. And that's really tough. I think being in that situation over and over and over can really wear on you. I know for me, it definitely comes in waves. There's some days where I'm like, whatever, it's fine. And then there's some days where I'm like, can I please see another brown person? I just need that. And I think, you know, when I've expressed those kinds of things in the past in different job settings, like, hey, you know, often I feel really excluded because of X, Y, and Z. Like, there's just a lot of different things. People don't realize that being Black is very different than being everything else. Not only because everything you do is demonized, every part of our culture is demonized. Sometimes it's repackaged into something with maybe a different name or even the same name, but somebody else from a different ethnicity acts like that's their thing or they identify with it, so now it's redeemed. Anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. But being able to say something is very rare. I actually remember a time when a coworker of mine we had a really good relationship. We were talking about something, and I had mentioned that white men are the highest demographic of serial killers in the world. And it was relevant to the conversation we were talking about. My coworker was not offended because, again, we had a really good relationship, and he knew that, one, that's actually just the fact. There's not anything to it other than that it's the fact, but also, like, it was relevant to our conversation, right? So my boss heard me and pulled me aside and was like, that's just, like, really inappropriate. But what they failed to hear was that right before that, my coworker, actually, maybe they did hear, it doesn't matter because I told them, but right before I had said that white men were the highest demographic of serial killers, my coworker had said something about Black people and Black on Black crime, right? And so anyways, my boss pulls me aside, tells me that's not appropriate. And I said, well, he wasn't offended. Nobody else around us was offended because they weren't. Like, we're all very close except for you, but that's not my problem. I didn't say that, but it was implied. And I told them, you know, he had said this thing, and so I said this thing, and it's really neither here nor there, right? And they said, well, it doesn't really matter what they said. And I said, also, mind you, the person I was originally talking to outranks my boss in this situation. So why am I getting talked to? Turns out that boss of mine desperately wanted to get rid of me. They hated that I was good at my job. They hated that people liked me more than them. And eventually I did leave because I'm literally not going to deal with that. You know what I mean? That's just the tip of the iceberg of things that you deal with when you're the only person of color in a space, specifically the only Black woman. Being the only person of color, I'm going to do this in layers, okay? We'll start with being the only person of color, and then we'll do the only Black person, and then we'll do the only Black woman, because there are differences. When you're the only person of color in a space, so in that scenario, everybody around you is white, it's definitely isolating. I don't know how else to put it. Depends on the kind of people you're around. Some people of white are like totally very inclusive and thoughtful. That is not the majority of the case in my experience. A lot of times I have to not only advocate for other people of color in our decision making, but also people with different abilities. So disabled people, people who maybe have bad eyesight, people who cannot hear very well, people who, name the thing, right? I always have to be the one who thinks about everything like that or brings those things up. Oftentimes no one else is thinking about those things. For some reason, when I'm only surrounded by people of white, those things get missed. Just saying. So as a person of color, that's typically the experience we have. Then when you're the only Black person, it gets a little bit spicier, because not only are you having to advocate for those things, if you're like me, I cannot not advocate because I know what it's like to not be thought of. And when I'm at a table where I have a seat, I'm going to advocate for the people who do not have a seat. That is simply the way I live my life. That being said, when you're the only Black person, male or female, you then are looked at to people like kind of look at you. They go, was that good? Was I inclusive enough? Am I being an ally? You know what? Good job, Bob. Honestly, it's tiring. It's tiring being the only Black person, because whether somebody wants to say it or not, everybody knows that being Black is the hardest body to be in, abled, disabled, hot, or not. And so when you're in spaces where you're the only one, it's either, did I do a good job? Was I a good ally? Or people just act like you aren't Black. They'll just make a group decision because they don't want to address that you're black, which doesn't make sense because oftentimes they know this experience is not going to be the same for that person, but they're in the minority. And I don't want to deal with having to think about anyone outside of myself or people like me. So I'm just not going to address it. And hopefully this black person doesn't address it either. That's how that goes. So anyways, and then last, we have being a black woman, the only black woman. Being the only black woman is really tough. I'm just coming out of the whole Claudine Gay at Harvard stepping down debacle. And a lot of people of white are assuming that she stepped down because she must be guilty of plagiarism. First of all, I want you to, okay, here's where we're at. Claudine Gay plagiarized. Oh my God. Okay, right below that surface is a man. I can't remember his name. It doesn't matter. Look it up. Who decided he was going to try and use Claudine Gay as a scapegoat to punish Harvard for something that has absolutely nothing to do with her. So there's that. Okay, so we go, this is Claudine Gay plagiarized. White guy who's using a black person as a scapegoat. That's happened to me a million times. Okay, that's just right below the surface. You go right below that. Okay, we're not even at my chin yet, and you see that what they're saying is about her plagiarism is that she didn't cite her sources in a part of her thesis according to the citation rules that we have today. But her thesis was written in 1997, and she did follow the rules that she needed to follow then. And I know this is probably so shocking, but just because she's a black woman doesn't mean she has time to go back and update every single piece of work that she's done every single year to fit the new guidelines. That's actually stupid and a waste of time. So I'm using her as an example because one, it's super fresh, but also it alludes to a bigger problem. And the problem is that people of white, let me rephrase. People of white always want to discredit a black person, specifically a black. Why do people hate seeing black women succeed? It's really so strange to me. It's really so strange because we make almost every situation better. And when I say we, I mean women like me, women who advocate for others, women who use their brains, women who have so much more to offer than keeping a seat warm. When I say women, I mean black women in this case. Not that other women don't have value. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm specifically talking about black women. If you want me to talk about just being a woman, I will make a video on that later in my life. Today is not that day though. Today's about me as a black woman and my experiences as a black woman. So there you go. But anyways, everybody wants to see black women fail. My theory is that for some weird reason, you don't love yourself enough to be able to reconcile that a black woman, we'll never say this, but black women are at the bottom of the food chain, right? That a black woman somehow did better than you. How is that? How is that when what you think is supposed to be at the bottom is at the top? How does that happen? It happens because actually we're quite capable. Me, Claudine, Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris, you name it. We know what we're doing. Unfortunately, we often have to abide by white rules, and that actually stifles everybody. It's not it's not better for anyone to be oppressed. I know that's really hard to reconcile, but I'm telling you, it is not good for anybody for people to be oppressed, okay? People have limitless potential. If you think that because somebody has a different color skin than you, or they are from a different place than you, or they were born into a less financially stable family than you, or whatever, and they somehow make it to a position that is higher than where you currently stand, and you're upset by that, I implore you to go to therapy. I implore you to look back at the choices you've made and seek help. Truly, seek help. I really don't know what else to say, because why do people hate Black people, and specifically Black women, so much? I really don't know. I've experienced so many times, and I didn't know that this was the case at the time always, but I've experienced so many people be threatened by my presence because I'm simply good at what I do. It happened when I worked at a boba place. It happened when I worked in musical spaces. It has happened in athletics. It has happened in corporate settings. The list goes on, okay? I happen to be a very capable person. It's like, I wouldn't say a pillar of my personality, just really like a pillar of, my life. Like, I just happen to be very capable. I'm very grateful that I've been mostly able-bodied most of my life. God gave me a really fast brain, and so that makes me very capable. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people don't like that I can acknowledge that in myself, but at the end of the day, like, you don't pay my bills, you know what I mean? You don't have to deal with the things I have to deal with. You didn't have to grow up where I had to grow up. And again, like, actually, what's your damage that I'm better at something than you? You should unpack that in therapy. You know what I mean? But back to my theory on why people hate Black women. I don't think you actually hate Black women. I have a theory. This is how I personally feel, okay? About me and my life. I find, and this is good and bad. I'll tell you how this shows up in life. My philosophy is, this is gonna sound how it's gonna sound. I don't care, okay? My philosophy is, everybody either wants to be me or be with me, okay? Unless you're racist, and honestly, you still fall into that category, baby. I'm still taking up space in your brain, even if you're a hater. And you know what? What do you want me? What do you want from me? You either want me or you want to be with me. There's no reason for somebody to not like me other than, like, right? Sometimes, okay, aside, sometimes you just don't like a person, whatever. Oftentimes I find that when I don't like a person, it's because they do something that goes against one of my core values. If you don't like somebody just for no reason, they haven't done anything to you, maybe you have a bias. Just maybe. I don't know. Maybe you have a bias. You should probably look into what that means. I actually think, was it Harvard? Is it Harvard or Stanford? Somebody has, one of those colleges have an implicit bias category of tests that you can do where you can figure out what your biases are and you can then address them. Back to my philosophy, my personal belief system of why people hate Black women, why I think people have expressed hate towards me. And this doesn't have to come from non-Black people. This can also come from Black people. I've gotten hate from Black people my whole life. For some Black people, I am not Black enough. Listen, I didn't even choose to be here. So you're mad at the wrong person. And honestly, there's no reason for you to be mad anyways, but whatever. I really feel like when it comes to that principle, you either want to be me or you want to be with me. It shows up positively and negatively. I so often will leave my house. This happens pretty much every time I leave my house, unless I'm just walking my dog, in which case I do my best so that nobody sees me because I just want to walk my dog. But anyways, I leave my house and I'm going to do the positives first. I leave my house and somebody's like, oh my God, you are such a vibe. You know, when I was younger, it was like, you're so pretty, or it was some kind of compliment. There's always compliments. Everywhere I go, I'm getting compliments. I literally went to Target the other day, and some guy was like, it is so good to see you today. I was like, wow. Wowzers. I didn't know him, you know what I mean? But he acted like he knew me, and he was like, it's so good to see you today. And honestly, carry that energy. Just be honest. It's so good to see me today. I know, right? I know. So that's how that shows up. Typically in men, it's like something like that. In women, it's normally like, oh my God, I wish I was you. Where'd you get that shirt? Why do you look that good? You're so confident. This, that, and the other. I was literally at In-N-Out. I was at In-N-Out recently, and I literally looked like a first lady. I don't know how to explain it other than that. I'll try and find a picture. Okay. And the girl in the drive-thru was like, I just want you to know, like, I think you're so pretty and I love your vibe, and like, you are just like so fun, and you made my day just from coming through the drive-thru. And I was like, period. I was like, wow, thank you so much. You know, I was literally just living my life listening to Harry Styles, who I will marry one day. That's another conversation. But anyways, those are the kinds of interactions I get all the time, right? You either want me, oh my God, it's so good to see you today, right? Or you want to be me, oh my God, you're such a vibe, right? That's how that goes. Now, negatively, it comes out like this. Hold on. Okay. Negatively, it comes out in very subtle ways most of the time. Sometimes it's quite overt, but it is what it is, and that's not my problem. A lot of times with women, negatively, it comes out something like, why are you dressed so nice? I wish I could pull that off. One time I was wearing like a burgundy shirt, and I had burgundy lipstick on and like a very subtle brown eye makeup, and somebody was like, why are you dressed so sexy today? Okay, mind you, I'm pretty sure you couldn't see any skin besides my hands. The over-sexualization of Black women is so frustrating, because personally, I had to suppress just existing for so long, okay? Because people always wanted to say, oh, you're too this, you're too that. My body was too curvy. I put on a little bit of makeup and, oh, you're just like commanding a lot of attention. What do you mean? I'm literally wearing nude lipstick and mascara, and I'm commanding too much attention? How about you command more? I'm not doing it on purpose. You are just a hater. That's how that comes out. You want to be me, just be honest, okay? And then there's men, right? They want to be with me. With men, it comes out a little bit differently. Sometimes I'll be out, and I'll simply be thinking about, what kind of drink am I going to order? Or I wonder how long my friend's going to take in the bathroom, you know? And a guy will walk by, and this can be a guy of any color. And I hear this pretty often. Oh, she thinks she's all that. Literally, I don't even know you. Just admit that you think I'm hot. Just admit you want me. Just be honest. Men can't be honest, though. Don't know what that's all about. Or, and this is my favorite, this doesn't just happen to Black women. It happens to all women, so shout out to all women, because most of us have dealt with this at least once. But I love when a guy comes up to you, and I say love sarcastically, and he's like, hey, can I get your number or whatever, right? And you're like, oh no, I don't give my number out. I literally don't know you. Why would I give you my number? Are you crazy? Are you trying to kill me? Are you gonna stalk me? Because I don't suggest that. That's not your best move. But also, no, thank you so much for, I'm flattered, right? I'm being so nice. And then they turn, well, you're not even that pretty anyways. Actually, that's actually never happened to me. But normally what happens is, oh, she thinks, oh, you think you're all that? Because I don't want to give someone I don't even know my number? Okay. Again, it's giving needs therapy, but whatever. In conclusion, and I would love to expand on this more, I do better when I'm answering questions, I think, rather than just thinking of a topic. But I am working on a better system to curate my videos, so we'll see in the next few days if that works better. Hopefully my thoughts are a little bit more coherent. I was having one of those ADHD moments. Anyways, yeah, I hope that this has given you a little bit of insight on how frustrating it is to be the only person like you in a space. And I don't want to hear, oh my God, you always make it about race. Black people always want to make everything about race. Okay. How about you go, you don't have to be a church going person for this, okay? But how about you go to one of those inner city all black churches on a Sunday, and then you tell me how it feels to be the only non-black person. Tell me about that. That's how I feel everywhere I go, so shut up. Anyways, it's been so good talking to you. My next video, I have not decided what it's gonna be yet, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Again, I'd love to hear your experiences, specifically if you're a black woman. If you're not a black woman, I don't really want to hear your experiences because this is actually not about you. There will be other videos that I post that are totally, I hope you resonate with. But this video is really one so that black women can know that they're not alone. If you see me and you're a black woman, I would love to say hi. I will always be your friend, and I'll always do my best to lift you up because that's my favorite thing to do. And stay blessed. Want me or want to be with me? Whatever. Love you. Oh, don't forget to share, subscribe, save, all those things. Ka-chow. Oh, and tune in next time. Tune in tomorrow for video number 3 in my 30 to 30 series. I'll look good. Yes, I do. Oh, let me take a selfie. Period. Is she in her witch era? Whew. Wow. How did I get here?